Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the quick introduction to the small version of my unloading stations, solid unloading stations to be specific. These are designed to serve items around your mall, around your depot. They're not meant for high throughput items. They're just for the, say, I don't know, landfill or whatever that you want to load onto trains, onto your builder train specifically, and you tend to need them in bursts rather than steady throughput. So as you can see, this is a whole lot smaller than this, right? And I decided that this was a good way to supply my builder trains once I am building more and more items in their own outposts. And I decided I didn't need the whole setup over here. I would be fine with something really small that I just manually set up real quick for every station. And it doesn't have to be complicated, right? It's good enough if it's really simple. What do we have here? So every wagon gets unloaded into 2 chests. I decided that this is good enough. I don't think I need more storage space for any item really that I could load onto builder trains. So I figured that having 2 chests per wagon was well enough, including the throughput of the inserters. That should be more than enough. Because remember, this is not actually different items being unloaded, but this is actually 8 inserters unloading one wagon, one item per train. So effectively you're getting the same item 8 times, right? So throughput is actually pretty high, I think, for what it is. And it might actually already be overkill, but this should work really well with the rest of your resource system. So I'm leaving it as this, and it's kind of future-proof. Right, what do we have here? So over here there's a settings combinator where you simply set the item that you want at the number that you want it to be available in the local logistics network, and we read that out from this robo port. This one's connected over here to this combinator, which inverts it, and the inverted version of what you have available for your builder train, right? So you want to connect this robo port to your depot, to your mall, or whatever you're currently still using, right? You want to make sure that the builder trains basically access the same or are in the same logistics network as these stations, so that this robo port can read all of it. And as this reads the network contents, it gets negated, and the negative values get added with the positive value that you have over here, which means that this combinator, which checks for anything that is positive, is going to give you a signal as soon as any item that does not meet our requested number in here exists. In this case we have landfill, and if I go over the, actually I can't see it in the robo port, I don't think, but if we look, do we have landfill here? We have landfill 48,000, 4,800 available in the global network, right? In the logistical network, which is obviously less than 10,000. Therefore, we get a signal here, and if I try to read out the wire over here, okay, what's up here? Oh, are we not? I deleted something earlier. That's why I'm not getting that's why it's not connected anymore here. There you go. Now we have the input there. You can see 4,800. That's less than 10,000, right? Gets added together over here. We now have a value of 5,200 that are missing, right? Because 4,800 subtracted from 8,000, 5,200 works out. From 10,000, 5,200 works out, right? So that gets passed on to this one, as well as to these inserters, right? And these guys work the moment that anything is not 0. Which means that this one puts out the value of 1. So here we don't put through the input count. We only want whether or not that item needs to be loaded. And as soon as that is true, all these inserters will get working, right? And they'll get working at the same time, which means that your trains should also be getting unloaded evenly, although that does depend a little bit on which of these chests your bots are emptying first. And I'm leaving these to be passive provider chests. I thought about making them active provider chests, but I figured this is storage space that we can use just fine. Unless you decide that you would rather have your stuff always stored close to your depot. So this was the other thought I had. If I make these active provider chests, bots will always automatically move every item to storage chests, and my storage chests tend to be very close to my trains, right? Lots of storage chests over here, right? And if these aren't enough at some point, I can just add more either in here or somewhere around the depot, right? So that was my other thought. And I don't know yet if once I release the blueprint, which is gonna be, I might just leave these to be passive provider chests. I might make these active provider chests. I'm not going to make these storage chests because A, you would have to filter them, right? Storage chests want, see if I have my, yeah, here. Storage chests do want the filter, right? And I don't want to force you to go into these and set the filter for these manually. Plus, even if the footprint of this is much smaller than this, you're still going to be stacking, or I'm at least going to be stacking hundreds of these, right? So eventually the distances are simply going to be pretty big, and that's also why I'm thinking about making these active provider chests rather than the passive provider chests. But generally speaking, I don't want bots delivering items back here when I'm eventually going to need them in the depot anyway, right? Because that's a long trip. Okay. If you're wondering about this combinator, this is simply the bit encoder, the bit shift, and this simply takes care of the whenever the item that you've set in here is required and there's not enough in the local logistical network, which means that this one sends the item through with a value of 1, puts it in here, and this one basically encodes it up into 65,000, which tells the train yards to send one full train of this material, to dispatch one full train to the station. And that's basically taken care of by this bit shift here. And this is the same bit shift that I have in my... Okay, let's get some power in here. This is the same bit shift that you find here, right? Just that this is a little bit more involved because there's more math going on. In a simple version, it's enough to simply encode the signal so that the train yard can read it, which is taken care of by this guy. And this one simply makes sure that this bit shift only gets delivered when there's no train already on the way to the station, because this one is set to only accept a single train, right? Which means I don't want the station to even request more items from this guy. If a train is already present or moving to the station, ready to be unloaded, right? I only want this station to actually request an item, request a train when there's no train here or coming. This is simply just for fuel. I have another one for the locomotive and in the back. And of course there's the roboports, because you need these guys here to offer enough recharging points for the logistical bots, because you're going to have thousands of them moving around this place, right? Depending on how many stations you have, it's going to be more and more, and you want to have a lot of roboports for that. This one down here is important because of course you can simply go and copy the station one down And you'll be using the blueprint for this, of course. But the reason that you want to do it this way is you want to make sure that these are connected to the global network, and I'll set up the blueprint accordingly. I'll create an adapter that you can use to connect this to the normal rail network to the rail network that comes with my many-to-many system. And since this is the wire that is going, the green wire specifically is the one that delivers the items or delivers the train demand to the global network, you want to make sure that every single one of these stations is connected to that, right? Which is why your blueprint is going to have this extra little bit over here so that you can simply continue stacking down. You can delete this if you are certain that you're not going to add more stations to the bottom of it, or you might have to remember to reconnect the green wire at least. What else? Well, of course, you need to name the station according to what you want, and when you get the blueprint, instead of this item already prepared here, what you're going to see is this, right? And okay, so can't use color if the value is negative. Damn it. Okay, doesn't matter too much. This is what it's going to look like, and the idea here is that the station warns you if you've forgotten to set the item, right? Reduce user error. That's basically the meaning of the alarm here. Right now, the save file is bugged. You can't hear the alarm. Unless maybe I copy it. Earlier I got it to work somehow, but it doesn't seem to want now, but yeah. Oops. And as long as you haven't set the item, you're going to hear an alarm. It's not a global playback, but it is going to show you an alert, right? Replace the red square with item at desired numbers. That means you go in here and you set the item that you want, and you type in how many of that item you want, not stacks, just straight up items, how many of that item you want. So for example, landfill, I'd probably set that at 16,000 because 16,000 is exactly as much as fits in one train, one builder train, right? And then the system would check the local logistical network if you have 16,000 available, and if not, that this combinator sets these inserters to unload the train that'll come in here, which should be the correct item, right? If you've taken care to set the item in here too. And that's actually it. So you'll notice that I'm not having any signals over here, and that's a result of the spacing here, right? So it's obviously this blueprint is set up such that you can fit a lot of stations in a small space, and it's exactly 6 tiles high, right? 2 for the tracks and 4 for the roboports. And this spacing of 6 sadly means that here if you have the spacing, there is no proper space for signals. Actually, is this correct? I'm slightly confused. Earlier it didn't work. I might have to retract that and just put down the signals anyway. Okay, so if you see no signals here, then you know why. It's because you can't properly set signals down. Or is that on the other side? Maybe that's why I'm... Yeah. You can set signals down on the outside, but you can't put them on the inside here for the trains that would go straight, because so again, the system is not designed for a lot of traffic. The idea is that you get your trains coming in, get the trains unloading, and then the trains stay there until they're completely unloaded, and you should only see occasional traffic. Of course, if you have a lot of these stations, the total traffic is still going to be something, right? It's not going to be a lot, but it's still going to be some trains moving here regularly, simply because you have a bunch of stations there. Yeah. So ideally, I would want to make this into lots of, okay, it's the wrong side, make this into lots of little segments so that the trains aren't forced to wait on the rails for one single train to move through for hundreds of stations and eventually park until the next can go in. But the problem with the density here is that you can only place these rail signals on the outside. You cannot place them on the inside for the straight truck, right? So if you don't see any signals here, that'll be why. And I figure that it's more important to be able to stack these stations close together than whether or not the trains can move efficiently. And if it's really a bother, it's always possible to just have a second set of tracks go down this way, right? And occasionally connect it over, or maybe have a little bit more space in here, and occasionally have them basically connect downwards like this, right? And then here you can set the proper signals so that the train can basically move back to back. So that's always an option, right? But I'm gonna check again because of the signals, because it seems that on this side it could work. Anything else? No, I think that's it. You'll find the blueprints in the stations, right? This is the previous iteration, but this was a little bit too, it's not that much bigger, but it's basically vertically twice the size, and I figured it just wasn't necessary. Or is it even 3 times the size? And while this is also pretty small compared to these guys up here, it's still not as small as it could go. And so I decided I should probably try a little bit harder to reduce and think about what I actually want out of this. Okay, there'll be an adapter provided that you can use to hook up the first of these stations to the network, to the rail network, and that also connects the global network, and then you just need to copy station after station down here, and that'll be fine. Thank you for watching.